What's poppin' with your Knicks family? This is your boy, and we're going to go ahead and get this thing rolling and rocking tonight. I got my man, Sandy, in the video chat. Hopefully we get the chat rooms popping a little bit tonight. I know it's a Friday night. People got things to do. You're probably out, maybe you're out partying, chilling, whatever it is. We got about an hour to talk because I'm going to be on the front stoop after this. And we're going to talk about Nas's new album, The Lost Tapes 2, which is... well, we'll talk about it then. We're going to focus tonight's conversation on David Fizdale and how David Fizdale can turn this team into an overachiever, because the clock is ticking for David Fizdale. The clock is definitely ticking. It just started ticking. He got a pass for last season. Rightfully so. And I'm pretty sure David Fizdale and Scott Perry and Steve Mills, they discussed what last season was going to be like. I'm pretty positive they did. And I'm pretty positive they had hopes that they were going to have a different kind of return during the offseason. Don't get me wrong. I'm very, very happy about what we got this offseason. Very happy about it. I'm just saying, as far as those guys are concerned, I'm pretty sure they had something different in mind, although they knew what the possibilities were, so they had a good plan in place, and they executed that plan to a T. And I've discussed that on several occasions. I've discussed it on this channel. I've discussed it on the Entertainers channel, which we had a very nice show last night. But the clock is ticking for David Fizdale now, in my opinion. It's time. It's time for him to show what he can do as a coach. It's time for him to show that he can be, well, let's start with a good coach and then move it on up to a great coach and then maybe one day a legendary coach. Who knows? That's where everyone has to start. So right now, we're just going to start with a good coach, that he can prove that he can be a good coach, because last year really doesn't count for too much. I was on his case, though. I'm not going to lie about it. I was on David Fizdale's case last year because there were things that I wanted to see that I didn't see. I wanted to see David Fizdale establish some basketball principles, and I'm not sure if those principles were established. I'm going to be honest with you. I just don't know if those principles were established last season. Certain things that I didn't see, that I thought would have, shown that, he was establishing some sort of infrastructure or had some kind of infrastructure in place. I do understand that we were depleted of talent, very depleted of talent and depleted of basketball skill. I get that. So it's very hard to tell from the naked eye if he did implement any kind of a structure or principles, basketball principles, or even team principles. We're going to talk about some of those things today. Because the guys, the team was so depleted of talent. It was just very hard to tell whether or not he actually put things in place, because maybe the guys just weren't able to execute those things. Maybe they just didn't have enough talent to execute those things. So, we'll have to see, but this is the year. You have, what you have with this team right now is you have enough talent and you have veteran leadership so that you can begin to really put some principles in place and execute those principles and hold guys accountable. He talked about accountability last season. Scott Perry talked about accountability as well. I'm not sure if I always seen that accountability. I just don't know if I always seen that accountability. And correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe it was there. And maybe I just missed it. But I'm not sure if it was. I'm not ready to say that it was there. It could have been. And I just missed it. I was just blind to it. But I didn't see it. So I'm not sure if it was actually there. Just being honest with you folks. That's what I see, or that's what I didn't see. That's what I didn't see. So tonight we're going to talk about David Fizdale We're going to analyze a coaching strategy. We're going to try to break some things down and talk about, well, I'm going to kind of talk about what I think he needs to do and how I think, he can put this team on the right track to overachieving. That's what I'm going to do right now as we speak. Because there are things that you can do and you should do as a coach that, in my opinion, will help your team to overachieve. And that's the type of team that they've put together. They've put together the type of team that can overachieve and that we are hoping will overachieve. Because if we can get these guys to overachieve, now you start to fast forward that process just a little bit. And I don't want to put this in the context of free agents either. I'm just talking about these guys, these players that's on this team, and trying to help these guys be the best basketball players that they can be and hopefully overachieve and turn some heads in the NBA. Because when the guys start to overachieve, the next thing you know is no longer overachieving. They overachieve this year and become a decent team. When you get to next year, it's no longer overachieving. Now you're expected. You have expectations. And expectations are important. Very important. Because expectations, what you expect to do during this season, is going to dictate your actions or your reactions, your expectations. So those expectations are important, very important. So first we've got to overachieve. We got to get to that point. That's the first thing that we have to do. And we're going to see. We're going to talk about if Fizdale can get there. Before we do that, though, I want to introduce the guys that's in the video chat. And guys, I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you guys to start getting into what your philosophy is. I don't want you to get into that right now. I just want you to say hi. If you want to talk about the Heat, talking about the weather, the Heat, not the Miami Heat. If you got a little blurb or something like that you want to say yes or no, do you think Fizdale can help these guys overachieve? Do that. But I don't want you to get into what your strategy is yet. Okay? Because I got a few things that I want to talk about, and I'm going to get to it. And then I'll get back to you. And I'll get your input. And I'll take some phone calls and some things like that. Okay? So I just want to say hi to you real quick. And I want you guys to say hi to those who are listening and watching and following along with us. All right? We got Who's Mark in the building. Mark, what's popping with you, bro?
What's popping, man?
I'm chilling. I'm good. You see, they got me switched. You see, they got me moving around from platform to platform.
Son, who's doing this to you, bro?
Yeah, I don't know, man. Somebody's throwing some hate out there, but hey, like I've been telling everybody, man. You know what I'm saying? They could.
It's not like hate to me, bro. Because all of a sudden you getting botched out.
Yo, listen. They can throw the hate out there. They can do what they want to do. They can try it. They can do all that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying? But I'm indestructible, Mark.
You already know, because you already got the fans behind you. That's all you need.
That's it, bro. I'm indestructible. So if that's what they're trying to do, then I spread out to other platforms. You know what I'm saying? And right now it's successful. It's being successful. It's building up slowly. Some people, they got to get used to Twitch, and they got to get used to, seeing it on Twitter and all that kind of stuff.
The thing when you're on YouTube, remember, you got a lot of people that come in and out on YouTube alone. So you're going to have your regular fans or whatnot follow you. But most of the time when your count be going up, those be people that be just, random people, you know what I'm saying?
Browsing.
They be tuning in.
Right. People that are just browsing. And look, that's all. That's all good. You know what I'm saying? That's all good. Right now, we're doing this thing. We're on Twitch. We should have been on Twitter. I don't know what's going on with the Twitter thing right now. Twitter changed up some stuff.
Yeah, Twitch, you gotta have your main followers follow you there, because it's hard to gain got people to come watch your stream unless you're doing something crazy on there. But other than that, your main followers gonna want to follow you there wherever you go. at that. But YouTube is the perfect source of gaining random fans because you have a lot of people that just search Knicks live and stuff like that. So the search engine helps you a lot.
Yeah. Hey, listen, right now, it's good. We're going good. I'll take this as recording and it'll upload to YouTube. So, it's straight. I'm good.
When you get back your main account?
I'll find out. I'm not sure. You know what I'm saying? I'll find out. Right now, I'm just going to focus on building these up. And when we get to it, we'll get to it. As a matter of fact, even when we get to it, I'm still going to be streaming I'll be streaming on Facebook.
Yeah.
Twitch,
do
Periscope,
that,
and YouTube all at the same time. So it's all good.
Yeah, facts.
It's all good. We're going to rock with it the way that we rock with it. But anyway, we're talking today about Coach David Fizdale.
Yeah.
Right? And we're talking about, how he can, take a strategy to develop this team. You know what I mean? So that's what we're doing right now. I don't want you to get into right now what you think the strategy should be. I don't want you to get into that right now. I just want you to say yes or no. Do you think that Coach David Fizdale can coach these guys to overachieve? That's all I want. That's all I want to hear from you right now. Yes or no?
Yeah, because you already got these guys' attention. Like, that's all you need is once you got these players doing what they have to do, meaning coming in shape, which is the number one thing with him. If you don't come in shape, you don't play. So if you want to play, you come in shape. Why do you think Dennis Smith looks so good? He can't come next season looking like how he did last year, not in shape and play for Fizdale. It don't work like that with him. So I think he got these guys' attention. I'm not worried about him galvanizing the troops or everything. He got that already locked down. It's just about getting talent and then putting a blueprint to what he got now to for the fans to see. But like I said, he's not on the clock yet for me. I think he got 2 or 3 more years before he's actually on the clock.
So you don't think right now he's on the clock?
Nah, because number one, the talent that he has, the main guys who he's developing, it's a lot of time that they need to develop into the players that the Knicks organization think they could be. So that gives them plenty of time. Because as long as RJ Knox, when they develop into players who we could depend on from night to night, that's when his time's starting to tick. But him winning games and developing players right now, that is his solely job right now. So I like the way Knicks fans is tripping out about he's on a top. No, he's not. He's not, because these players are still fresh. Still fresh out the box.
I mean, they are. But I'm looking at the guys that were brought in. I'm not saying that the clock is towards the end. I'm just saying that the clock has started.
I mean, as improving.
How much time does he have? I don't know, but the clock has started. That's what I think.
I would say, I won't say start this year. It's more next year, because again, you bring in a whole new fleet of guys. So you're basically putting people on a trial right now. Everybody's on trial right now. We want to see what Knox looks like in his second year. We want to see what Mitch looks like in his second year, and RJ and all the other guys. So I just think this is another year of, not saying figure it out, but creating a blueprint, as I said, for guys to go out there and play, to know their roles, to know when they come on the floor what their role is to do, the plays that's being implemented by guys and stuff like that. Just a philosophy, basically. I don't think it's like, I just think that they should win more games than what they won last year, because the lack of talent they didn't have last year compared to this year is much better, with guys a little more awareness to the game. So I think, just winning more games, just winning more fourth quarters and stuff like that, just looking more of a team, just not looking like a team that was just out there just to be out there. You know what I mean? Just more a little organized. That's what
You see how you just said that you expect the team to win more games?
Yeah, a little more games. I'm not expecting them to make the playoffs, but just look like a functioning team that know what they're doing on the floor, from rebounding, from cutting, from setting picks, from guards making assists, just stuff like that.
I get
so, just
right.
a discipline.
But see that's what I'm saying. Once you begin, in my opinion, once you begin to have some expectations,
yeah,
the clock starts. That's how I feel about it.
But there's two different types of expectations. The expectation on the clock is when you have Kevin Durant healthy at 32, and it's time to win a championship.
Yeah, but see, I disagree with that, because this is what I'm saying. What if you're saying we should win more games? So give me a number.
I would say 30 to 35, 40, okay. 40, depending on how good the first. I always judge the season by the first 20 games. Okay, the first 20 games would tell you what our season's going to look like.
Right. So now you said 30 to 35 games, right?
Yeah. But 30 is my max.
Right. Because in your mind, we have the talent to win 30 to 35 games, right?
We have a little more functional players that know what they're doing.
Exactly. So now let's say that they come out and they win 25 games.
Yeah.
Right? What are you going to do? You're going to start looking at who?
The coach.
The coach. Exactly.
The coach.
And that's what I mean when I say the clock has started. It doesn't mean that he's near the end of the clock.
Oh, okay.
But
because when you say now, the clock has started, it's like with New York, it's like amounts of heat. Because once you tell New York fans the clock is just started, it's a whole nother level of just started.
Right.
So I'm trying to start at an expectation to let's chill right now, because right now I'm humble about what's coming through this next season. You get what I'm saying? We came off a
listen. I definitely get what you're saying.
So I'm just trying to go in a little more positive, more than anything.
Right. I definitely get what you're saying. I get that.
You know
I understand that. I understand that to the fullest. Right. I definitely get that. And it's.
I ain't trying to jump out the window, you know what I mean?
Right. And it's definitely that way. But I think once you start to have a few expectations, I think the clock starts. You know what I mean? But I have some things though. I'm gonna help Fizdale out, and I could take and send this to Fizdale and say, Fizdale, I'm helping you out, bro. I want you to check this out. This is what you need to do. You know what I mean? But I'm gonna help Fizdale out. Let me get over here to Ernesto, then I'm gonna get to Sandy, and then I'm gonna come into the first thing that I think Fizdale needs to do. The number one thing. Then I want to hear you guys' feedback on that. Ernesto, what's popping, man?
Hey, what's poppin', brother?
I'm good. How you feeling? So let me get your opinion. In your opinion, are the Knicks...
What's up, Sandy?
Is Fizdale... Has the clock started on Fizdale?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the clock starts this season. I mean, he's not going to be on the hot seat or anything like that, but he's definitely on the clock. I mean, he has to show us something, and that's what we mean by that, He has to implement a system. He has to have good fourth quarter execution, especially coming out of timeouts. I mean, he has some players now. So, obviously, I think the clock starts. Yeah, this season. Yeah. I mean, if they go out there this year, next season, and they go out and win 22, 25 games, that's not going to cut it. He's going to be on the hot seat for the next following year. So. Yeah, and from that standpoint, I think the clock starts.
Okay, this season. I agree with you. I think the clock is definitely started. What are your expectations?
They're gonna win anywhere. I'm gonna go with an. I'm gonna say anywhere from. I would say 35 to 41 wins. 35 to 41, that's not reaching.
35 to 41.
I'm saying.
Okay, you think we can get up? What do you think it's going to take for us to get up to 41 wins? What do you think?
For us to, a couple of players are going to have to. Obviously, the guys that are coming in, the new guys that are coming in, are going to have to mesh very well, and the young core, you're going to have to see DSJ take a huge leap forward, which I don't think is going to happen, but hopefully Frank, man. Hopefully Frank is the secret sauce for next season, man. Who knows?
Well, we're gonna find.
I mean, Frank is a two-way player. If he can get his offensive game down, and it's there, man. He has a good shot. It's just he hasn't been knocking him down. His confidence has been shot. But if Frank could come back, I mean, if Frank can improve, which I think he can, I think there's a possibility there. I don't see. Look, the RJ DSJ backcourt, that's worrisome to me. I don't think that's a good combination at all. First of all, both players struggle from within and from outside the arc shooting, as well as the free throw line. Both of them are inconsistent finishing around the rim. Both of them take a lot of bad shots.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them have similar games in a way that they have a very predictable playing style. So that backcourt, I'm not feeling that backcourt of DSJ and Barrett, to be honest with you. I'd rather have Frank back there because at least he's a much better defender than DSJ, and I believe he's going to be a better shooter. And I just think the combination works better with Frank than it does with DSJ.
Okay.
All right. Just the way I feel about it. Hopefully Gordon, hopefully Elfrid Payton. I mean, I really don't want him in that starting spot, man, because is he the point guard of the future?
Well, I don't know.
No.
It's hard.
The reason is, look, we've done this year in and year out again. Look, last year was with Moutier. They played him the whole freaking year for what? To let him walk this year?
Well, I mean,
come on, man. I mean, that it was a waste of time, that Moutier. So what they're gonna do? Look, this year is still about make no mistake about it. The number one goal this season still needs to be developing the core, the youth. That still needs to be the number one goal. And if that's the number one goal, that means you still have to go with it. You still have to see what you have in DSJ. I'm going to be fair. Okay. Me, I'm not a believer in DSJ. I think he's an undersized shooting guard who can shoot. He's going to make a couple of highlight reel dunks that are going to pop up on SportsCenter. But to me, he's not a really good playmaker. I mean, I just don't see it with him, to be honest with you. But look.
Well, listen.
Let's be fair. Let's give both Frank and DSJ the opportunity to showcase themselves 100% this season. We have to, by the end of next season, we have to know. Look, yes, he's capable of playing point guard either at the backup or the starting role. We need to find answers.
No, I mean, I get you. I get you, and it's gonna be, it's gonna be up to Fizdale to put these guys in situations where we can find some answers. That's why we're talking about, the strategy that I think Fizdale needs to take. Sandy, I'm gonna just come to you really quick, and then I'm gonna start getting into this strategy. And where I think they need to go with it. But just tell me, is Fizdale on the clock for you? Has the clock started ticking?
Absolutely on the clock. I mean, we talked about this last night on your co-show. I am really, really hopeful that some of the things that we questioned about him last season, especially those, his playing time decisions, were because they wanted to lose those games and they were tanking. I am really, really hopeful that is why we were scratching our heads some nights. So I expect a much better rotational situation. Him not too quick, maybe to pull. Definitely to not pull some, depending. I still am going to stand by. I think 32 games is what we win. 40 plus games, 41, 42 wins would mean insane overachieving. And if we're on a pace to win 42 games, that means that some of the guys we brought in are really playing their asses off. It's not just the kids. And some of those guys are not going to be here come trade deadline. So even if we're on pace for 40 games, that doesn't mean we will win 40 games, because this is not about being the. I mean, tell me if you disagree with me, Sim. This coming season is not about being the last team to make the playoffs and getting knocked out in the first round. It is about getting these kids the playing time, the experience, and building the future. So if they're playing well and these guys they brought in on short-term contracts can bring back draft picks, you got to do that.
Well, see, I think I disagree with you a little bit. I'm not saying that it's about just getting into the 8th seed. But if you're on your way to getting into the 8th seed, I don't think you make moves I don't think you make any other moves. You don't say, okay, well, we got to go get this guy just to get into the 8th seed. But I think if you can take this group and get into the 8th seed, now if there's a deal that benefits the team that's out there, you make the deal. Right. But I think it benefits these guys to fight for or get into that 8th seed. I really think it does.
You're saying that you're putting more emphasis on them learning how to play night and night out when the games matter to make the playoffs.
Yeah, because listen, the one thing I'm going to say is this. It takes now when you're fighting for something and you're in the mix, even if you don't get there, the level of focus, the level of preparation, it's totally different than when you're not.
You're right, and I guess the
kids got to learn that. They got to learn how to. Focus that way and prepare that way. And you know, how do you eat when you're preparing that way? Do you go out and party the night before a big game that could knock you out of the playoff situation? You know what I mean? You know, they got to learn this type of
I'm not giving enough credit of what even if they were to go out in the first round, I don't think I actually gave enough credit of the experience of playing in the playoffs would be for those kids.
Yeah. Exactly. That's the thing. Playing in the playoffs would be tremendous for those guys.
So I guess you look at it that way.
Yeah, I think it would be tremendous playing in the playoffs for those guys. Yeah.
But I definitely agree with you that he is on the clock, and you know he's got to be accountable. He's got to show that, and that means a lot for him. It means he's got to show that he makes good decisions when it comes to coaching, and I also hold him accountable for the younger kids getting better. I expect to see them improve throughout the season, and I hold him and his staff responsible to do that.
Yeah. I agree with you. I definitely agree with you. So what we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is we're going to start getting into what I think Fizdale needs to do in order to try to take these guys to the next level. And then what I'm going to do is, you know, I'm going to go step by step in what I think needs to happen. And then I'm going to come back to you guys. All right. And I'm not even sure if Mark and Ernesto is hearing what I'm saying, but then I'm going to come back to you guys and try to get, you know, just hear from you guys. You know, what do you guys think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? All right. You know, so that's how we're going to go about doing this right now. All right. That's how we're going to go about doing it. So right now, the first thing that I think needs to happen, that Coach Fizdale needs to do in order to begin establishing some kind of structure with this team, because it is a very new team for Coach Fizdale. So the number one thing, as soon as they get in the training camp, and they can probably do it before you get in the training camp, number one thing, establish some standards, team standards. That's the first thing I think needs to happen with this team. And I think with any team that you have, establishing standards is important. It's one of the most important things that you can do. Any team, any business, and any organization, you've got to establish some standards, some values. And I'm not talking about basketball right now. I'm just talking about your mode of operation. Things like being on time, right? Things like how you express yourself to the coach, to other players, things of that nature, right? So you got to have some standards in place. If not, then things are going to run wild. Standards and values, they keep everybody thinking in one direction. I think that's the very first thing that needs to happen, is that Fizdale and Scott Perry and Steve Mills, they sit everybody down and they say, here's our standards. This is what we expect from you as a professional. This is not just basketball stuff, ladies and gentlemen. This is professional stuff. As a professional, because whether or not we want to see it or like it, these guys are entering the realm of work. And they are independent contractors. That's why they have contracts with the team. They're independent contractors, right? So they're not exactly employees of the team. They're independent contractors of the team. They contract with the team. They partner with the team. They're business partners. But you still got to have a standard mode of operation, a standard mode of professionalism. And I'm not saying that the Knicks don't have this, but with so many new players, I think you've got to, if they do have it in place, you got to set it up right from the beginning. As soon as everybody walks in the doors, we're talking the Knicks have 6-7 new players on this team. Half your roster is brand new. So you got to establish some standards, some guidelines, the values of your organization. You establish those things right away. You don't play with it. You establish it right away. I think that's of the utmost importance. And that's one of the biggest things. How do you do that? How does he establish that? Well, to be honest with you, you start now. If you have some things that you've already put in place, you send it out to him now. Maybe you have a manual. I don't know. Every organization does, and the Knicks are nothing but an organization. Every basketball team in the NBA, they're an organization. Maybe you send them that manual and you say, I need you to study this. I need you to read this. I need you to know this manual, because when we come in for training camp, we're going to discuss what's in this. Because we need to make sure that everybody's operating in a professional manner, and we need to make sure that everybody is upholding the values of the New York Knicks, of the Madison Square Garden company. If you're not upholding these values, and you cannot uphold these values, then maybe this isn't the place for you. That's the first thing. That's the very first thing that I think needs to happen. The very first thing. The next thing that I think needs to happen, and there's different modes to go about this, different ways to go about it. So once you've established, that you have some standards and some values, and guys have come in and they talked about, these standards and values, and you've explained it to them, and, you had this big powwow with it. Cool. Now you're ready. Now you got that down. Now what you need, and this is very important as well, at least to me it's important. The Giants did it back when they won the Super Bowl in 2008, I think it was. They developed a leadership group. And I think that's important. And you can go about it any way that you want. It doesn't mean that Coach Fizdale needs to say, here is my leadership group. Doesn't have to go that way. The team can develop that leadership group if you want to. But if I'm Coach Fizdale, I would have a say, and this is the way that I do it with my players. I have a say in who's going to be part of that leadership group. And David Fizdale should have a big say in who's going to, not just David Fizdale, but his coaching staff. And let me go back for just a second, because when I talk about establishing standards and values, you've got to do the same thing with your coaches. David Fizdale first has to do it with his coaches and make sure that they know and understand the standards and values of the organization, the company, the New York Knicks. and make sure that everyone is speaking with the same voice. And then you make sure the players understand these same standards and values. It's got to happen. It's got to happen. And then you develop your leadership group. Obviously, you have your leadership group within your coaching staff and your developmental staff. You have your group and you have a plan within that group. But you develop your leadership group within the players. And you can have the players vote. But David Fizdale and the coaching staff should have a say on some of the people that's in that leadership group, because it makes sense that you have your veterans in there. Because your veterans have been professional, they've been in the league, and they understand, and they can communicate back and forth. I'm not saying that the coaches should not be communicating with the players, but what I'm saying is that sometimes you've got to have the voices that go back and forth from the players to the coaches. That's important, right? Because the coach or coaches may not always be in touch with what's happening with the players, but the players are in touch for the most part. So if you have one or two people that can relay that information, bring that information back and forth, explain to the coach how the team is feeling, that is of the utmost importance. It's got to be someone that you respect. I'm looking towards Taj Gibson, right? You might have Taj Gibson, maybe Wayne Ellington, maybe another player, that you trust with these guys to be that leadership group. Now, obviously, you got to have buy-in from the players. So the players need to have they've got to be able to say, yes, I do not mind having Taj Gibson be part of this leadership group. I do not mind having Wayne Ellington be part of this leadership group. And then the players may say, but we want somebody young in there as well. Who's the best young person to put in there? And, so it's got to be a group decision. Coaches and players, they decide who that leadership group is going to be. This is the establishment. This is the infrastructure of a culture being built. Do the Knicks already have this? I don't know. I'm hoping that they do. But we don't know. And if not, Coach Fizdale, I hope you're paying attention, because this is important stuff. The next thing is you develop some more standards. This time, you develop basketball standards, right? And this is not basketball standards that have to do with playing on the floor, right? So maybe I should say basketball operational standards. How do we operate as a team? Okay, so let's call it that. We'll say basketball operational standards. Okay, you got to have these. So what's that mean? Well, that means, how do we practice? Do we work hard in practice, or are we taking days off? What kind of mode are we setting when we do that? What's the tenor of practice? Are we serious, or are we joking and playing? You got to have some of these standards, right? When you're establishing standards and values for the for the business side of it, that's some stuff that you're dealing with just as the New York Knicks. What are the standards and values of the company? But when we get down, you got your developmental, you got your leadership group, and then now you're doing basketball standards as being on time to practice. You're not sleeping during film sessions, right? These are the kind of standards I'm talking about. You're there, you're focused, you're paying attention. You're not, if the team wants to put a curfew in place, it's up to the team. If the team says we're going to do a curfew, then the team does a curfew. Or maybe you do a curfew on trips. Whatever, who knows? But the leadership group helps the rest of the players on the team and the coaches to establish basketball operational standards, just how your team is going to operate off the floor. And if it's and the expectations of your team leads a lot into this. If you expect your team to be good, if you expect your team to be professional, if you expect your team to develop into professionals, these are things that you got to have. So you got to develop some basketball operational standards. And now, once you have these things in place, you got a pretty good foundation now, because you have some things in place that you can point back to. And listen, these things can't just be in air, okay? Yeah, everyone's going to be on time to film session. It can't just be out there in air. You got to put these things down on paper. And people may say, Sam, you're going too far. And I'm not going too far. Because when you put it out there in air, it can fade away real quick. You got to put these things down on paper. You got to make it so that they can see it, they can hold it, they can touch it. It is now tangible to them. And you make all of them commit to it. You commit to these standards and values. You commit to these things. That commitment means something. That means that they got to sign something to say that they commit to it. Then you make them sign something. But that's important that it happens, in my opinion. Because now you have something to hold these guys accountable. Now it's no longer the coach doesn't like me. No. Now it's I broke the rules that I set. I helped to set these rules and I broke them. Okay. That's what has to happen. And so guess what? You also got to have consequences to breaking these rules or standards. Right? You got to have consequences. If you don't have consequences, and there got to be consequences that fit, whatever the rules are that were broken. When you're establishing these standards, you come up with the consequences. It's important to come up with these consequences because, like I was saying before, if you don't have these things written down on paper, and then you don't have the consequences for breaking these rules, now it could be like, oh, the coach don't like me. This player don't like me. The GM don't like me. Right? Because you don't have these things written down. It's not on paper. But when you got it written down, it's on paper and they're paying attention to it. They can hold it. They can see it. They can read it. They can speak it out. They can digest it because it's there. Well, if they break one of these rules, hey, these are the rules that you set. It's not because I don't like you. These are the rules that you set. And so then what's next? I'm pretty sure you can guess what's next. What comes next? Well, you've got to enforce those rules. Right? Whatever it is, you got to enforce it. And here is where I get nervous, man, about Fizdale. I'm not going to lie. I get a little bit nervous. Will David Fizdale enforce any rules, any standards, any values that are put in place? Will he be able to enforce it? I'm not sure. Because David Fizdale doesn't always, he likes to be friends with the guys, I feel like. You know what I'm saying? I feel like David Fizdale wants and likes to be friends. And when you want to be friends before you're the coach, instead of just being the coach, you want to be friends, that's going to be a problem. You know what I'm saying? That's going to be a problem because you got to be the coach. You can't be friends. You're not friends with these guys. You're the coach. You're the coach for a reason. Just like your parents. Your parents aren't friends with you. Your parents are your parents. And they're going to uphold and they're going to enforce any rules that they put in place. They should. And hopefully they do. So that's one thing. I get a little bit nervous about David Fizdale because I'm not sure if he's always going to enforce things that he puts in place. I hope that he does. When I watched him last year, I felt like he gave a little bit of leadway, maybe a little bit too much leadway sometimes. That's what I felt with him last season. I felt like maybe he gave it a little bit too much leadway. You know, I don't want to see that. And, you know, I put enforce all standards at this point because you're going to begin to start operating, right? You're going to start operating before you get, you know, before anything else. You know, you're going to start operating as a team, as an organization. So you're going to have to start enforcing these standards early. But after you've got all this stuff in place, you have your consequences and you're enforcing them now. Now you've got to develop a philosophy of play. Right? How are you going to play? Now, some of that comes in training camp, seeing the guys play, seeing how the team mixes together. Some of that comes then. But you got to develop a philosophy of play. Right? It's important, you know, because your philosophy of play is going to lead into the type of sets that you choose, the type of actions that you do on the floor, what you practice. It leads to all of those things. So you got to have a philosophy of play so that everyone is of the same mindset. So you've got a philosophy of play on offense, a philosophy of play on defense. These things are important. You got to have them. If you don't have these philosophies of play, that means you're just going out there and doing stuff. You have no idea what you're doing, right? You're just running up and down the floor. You don't have an idea. You don't know why, right? But when you have a philosophy of play, then you know why you're doing certain things when you're out there on the floor. You know why you're doing certain things, and that is important. To know why you're doing certain things on the floor. Why did I move here? Why did I move there? Because this is our philosophy. Why is the team shooting so many threes? Why does the team pass the ball so much? Because this is our philosophy. This is what we do. And you got to get everybody to believe in that philosophy of play. And the hope, and this is what, you know, I go back to this a lot. The hope is that the philosophy of play can lead into your philosophy of life. And this is kind of what Phil Jackson wanted to do with the triangle. And I don't want to go back and bring up bad, negative stuff with the triangle, but it's kind of what he was trying to do with the triangle. It's just a philosophy of play and even a philosophy of life, right? Of being opportunistic, taking the options that are available to you and always being in position to capitalize on any opportunity that's available to you. That is what I see Phil Jackson was looking for, but we're not going to go back there. But I do believe in that. That is a philosophy of mine. You know, so you got to develop a philosophy of play, both on the offensive end and on the defensive end. And then once you develop that philosophy of play, then you need certain principles that lead, basketball principles that lead into your philosophy, that support your philosophy of play. And look, I know there's a lot of people maybe thinking I'm getting too deep into this, but I'm not. Right? You need basketball principles that support your philosophy of play. Right? And that's not always easy to do. You know, because, and that's up to the coach. And that's going to be another question. Can David Fizdale develop these principles that are going to support his philosophy? or the team's philosophy, because the team they're gonna develop this philosophy together, right? Then it's up to the coaching staff. Okay, we got this philosophy. This is the best way we think this team can play. Now, coach, go out and put the system together. Go out and put that system together. Go get those principles and teach these principles. And make sure that these principles meet the talents of our players. And yeah, everything that's on this list is always going to be, you're going to be able to adjust. You're going to have to be able to adjust, because you may get players that, you got to adjust your system for, you got to adjust your basketball principles for. Okay. You may get that. So now we have something set up here. We have some kind of a structure here now, right? We got team just organization standards. We got a leadership group. We got our basketball operational standards. We know how we're going to interact with each other and operate as a basketball team. And we have consequences for not upholding all of these standards. And we have a coaching staff that is enforcing all of these standards. Then we have a philosophy of play. We know how we want to play on the offensive side and on the defensive side. And we have principles in place, basketball principles in place to support our philosophy. What's the next step? The next step? Enforce those principles. Because if you don't enforce the principles, then guess what? You're done. Right? If you let people start to slide and do things that are outside of your principles, then you don't have any principles. Right? So now you've got to enforce your principles. And how do you enforce your principles? You enforce your principles by putting players on the bench that are not upholding those principles. That's how you enforce your principles. Right? Put them guys on the bench. Say, hey, you're not going to play the way that we said we're going to play as a team. Then you might as well not play basketball at all. Don't play for this team if you're not going to enforce what we said we were going to do. So you got that Coach David Fizdale, the coaching staff. They've got to enforce the principles. So the utmost importance. So that's the strategy that I take. And now, you're going to, this, of course, it leads to a bunch of questions. We're not going to get to all those tonight because in a half an hour, I got to go on to the front stoop. But it leads to a bunch of questions. Like who starts and who comes off the bench? Who's your point guard? Who's your shooting guard? Leads to all that kind of stuff. But hey, this is the way you start. This is where you begin. And you can't start, you can only start from the beginning. All of that stuff, who plays where, who's the starting point guard, who's the starting small forward, all of that stuff comes after you've developed these things that I just laid out for you. All of that comes afterwards, right? Because if you try to do it beforehand, it's almost impossible to do it beforehand. You know why? Because how can you develop a starting lineup if you don't know what kind of basketball you want to play? How can you say, this guy is going to play here or there if you have no basketball principles? You can't. You can't. You can't. So you've got to establish these things first. So this is the first part of my strategy, and I'll probably do a part 2 to this. Because it's necessary. And I want to add in here that the team will need to make adjustments when necessary. Right? You may need to make adjustments to a few things. Yes, you have certain things already established, but if something is not working, then you may need to adjust it. You may need to move things around just a little bit. That happens. That's good. That's okay. That's okay if that's what you have to do. But there you have it. Establish your standards and values as a team, as an organization. Develop a leadership group. Develop basketball operational standards. Set your consequences to when folks begin to break these rules. Enforce all of your standards and enforce it tough, especially from the beginning. Be tough with all of these standards. Now, you develop a philosophy of play, the offense and the defense. You develop basketball principles that support your philosophy, and you enforce those principles. And like I said it before, from the beginning, you enforce them vigorously, tough, rough, right from the beginning. You straight up just bam. This is it. I'm going by the rules. There's no flexibility. A little bit later on, after you know the team and the team has fallen into place and they're all following the rules and they're following these standards, you can make some exceptions. And then, of course, you're going to make some adjustments when it's necessary, because it may be necessary at some point. It may be necessary. You'll make the necessary adjustments. But that's how I think you go about it. That's the strategy that I take in beginning to, try to make this team or help this team to overachieve. That's where I go with it. That's what I think. I want to hear from you. I want to know what you think. If you think I'm on point or if you think I'm just way off base, let me know. And don't be shy about it either. I could take it. I'm good. Trust me. Don't be shy about it. Let me know what you think. Now we're going to do a part 2 to this because like I see Teddy Taylor says, what's the overall talent structure of our players? We're going to do a part 2 to this. And we're going to get into the weeds a little bit more. But this is the beginning. This is the beginning to me on how you start to develop these guys. And if you want this team to overachieve, how it begins. Because now, if you look at this, and I'm going to bring it over one more time, you really have something in place now. You have something in place. And you need these things. When I talk about basketball principles, you need them written down. You're going to enforce those principles. You need that written down. And what are the consequences when people do not abide by those principles? What do? You need that written down. You need all this stuff. You need it written down. It can't just be out there in the wind blowing. You got to have it there written down for you. I want to get to these guys that's in the chat. I want to know what they think. They might think I'm crazy. I don't know. And we got a little bit of time, man. We got about 10 minutes. So if you guys want to call in, you might want to get your calls in now because we're going to be moving on over to the front stoop shortly to talk about this Nas album. You know what I mean? I want to know what you guys think. I'm going to come to Guermo since he just joined us. Guermo, what's good, man?
How you doing, man?
I'm chilling. All right. So I just laid out at least the beginning of my strategy on how I think that David Fizdale needs to go about it. What do you think?
So is this all the stuff that me and Isaiah were talking about at the beginning of last season? So yeah. all you're doing is just basically reiterating what we said you should have done last season. Like, that's one of the reasons why I gave Fizdale, or the coach, front office, a B or B plus instead of an A, because this is all the stuff they should have done last year. I don't remember how the free agent landscape was in terms of B plus level players or free agents to get, but This is all the stuff they should have done last year. So again, I agree with you 1,000%. Establish philosophy, establish how you want to play, establish who your so-called generals are on the team, the guys who are going to instill your philosophy, get these guys all played in your system. I mean, again, the veterans and stuff they did, it all fits into what me, Isaiah, what we've been saying all along. You know what I mean? When we try to go for these free agents, you got to take into account, when you go at these big stars, are they going to fit your philosophy? You can have as many free agents, great free agents you want. They don't fit your philosophy, you're a dead team.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they don't fit your vision, everything is going to fall apart. You're not going to win. So everything you said, I mean, I agree with that. I don't even know what to really add. So it is what it is.
Yeah. Viv, what's going on? You missed everything. Because we only got a couple minutes left. We're gonna be moving on to Stoop. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But basically, I kind of just laid out a little bit of what I think should happen and how I think the Knicks should, or David Fizdale should go about, beginning to develop his strategy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I caught it on Twitch actually.
Okay.
So I did catch it. All your points are accurate points. There's nothing wrong in them. I think like Guillermo just mentioned right before, most of these things, like I think they should have been implemented, if not last year, definitely the year before. Those are like the core tenets of, that starts from the front office down to your players. And I think, some of the points they've actually been built in a sense, like, the professionalism aspect. And I think there's a base that, like someone like Fizdale can work with. Now the real key obviously is that a lot of players, but the players that we're bringing in are not, like 19 or 20-year-olds. There's players that have been in the league a bunch of years. So I think that, establishing those standards, that leadership, et cetera, that shouldn't be, that should be easily reinforced into year 2 of Fizdale's coaching tenure. The real key, like you just mentioned at the end, I think the system of philosophy of offense and defense, I think that is going to be hard again, because I think the moment we have roster turnover, that makes things very, very, very difficult to implement.
Yeah.
And we have rookies, right? We have certain players, but again, we're talking about rookies, sophomores, third-year players, right? So it's very hard to especially develop a defensive system, because that I feel like takes a long period of consistency and time, and that usually also takes a lot of trial and error, right?
Yeah,
so,
but I think you can still have a philosophy.
Oh no, yeah. No, you can definitely have philosophy, but I think the execution of it, is going to be that's going to be the struggle, right? Because I think like the overall, they probably had a philosophy. They just probably couldn't execute it last year. I don't know. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, I would hope they have some sort of philosophy and they just couldn't execute it. But I mean, if they didn't have philosophy, it's really hard to kind of have to develop it, year after year.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, those ones.
Yeah. Let me listen. We got like 4 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. And then we're going to be jumping over to the front stoop to discuss Nas's new album, Lost Tapes 2. So please join us on the front stoop. That's going to be pretty dope. All right. Mark, just tell me real quick, man, what do you think? But everything that I just said. Can you hear me, Mark?
Yeah, I hear you, bro.
What do you think?
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, what I think, part of what you said is what should happen, of course. Like I said, he has guys with a little more court awareness, just the IQ for the game to actually put something in. So I think it's going to work out a little more better. I think you're going to see what I've been saying, that he can coach, he has set plays, he has things that work. But when you don't have players that cannot execute the plan, which he didn't have last year, it's not going to be consistent. He has a little more consistent players that know what they're doing on the floor, that know where to be on the floor. So all those stuff that you ran off, you're going to see it mostly in the players. You're just going to see it. So his coaching is going to speak for itself within his players. When you got Randall, you got Portis, Taj Gibson. These are guys that know how to play. They know how to execute. They know where to be defensively on the floor. They just know how to be professionals on the floor. And the thing is, they're all tough and they're not scared. The Knicks had a lot of players that just didn't know what they was doing, lack of IQ, lack of awareness. It was just horrible last year. And for people to judge last year, to even be mad about last year, it's just like a blank sheet of paper for what happened last year. Because there was no talent on that team last year to even talk about. It was highly pathetic. It was highly pathetic, and we couldn't score at that, Sim.
Yeah.
So we have guys that could score more on a little bit of consistent basis. We didn't know where we was getting scoring from last year. Everybody was having different nights from game to game. If you don't have a player that can get you 18 to 20 points consistently, you're not going to have a system consistently that's going to work. You have to have players to actually make that are consistent, that builds the system. Like I said, I believe in galvanizing the troops, the men, and having them in shape and doing what they have to do. That's all you need to be a coach, for players to go out there and be the professionals they are on the floor. If the players don't respect you, they just don't go out there and play. I think these players have so much respect for this man. It's undeniable.
No,
He
let's
works
hope so.
for them. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, let's hope so. Let's hope so. Hey, Mark, I'm gonna come. Well, I'm not gonna come back. I'm gonna get around to Ernesto and Sandy real quick, and then I'm logging off so I can get on the front stoop. All right.
All right, bro.
All right, man. Hopefully we see you on the front stoop.
Nah, I'll be there, but I ain't listened to Nas' new album.
Oh, well, how you gonna review it if you ain't listened to it? You can't review it if you didn't listen to it. Ernesto.
What's going on, Tim?
What do you think, man? Just, real quick. What do you think about what I, what I displayed there?
Actually, I was talking to Mark on the video chat, so I wasn't.
Oh, you wasn't able to really check it out. Okay. All right. Well, this is what we do, because I'm going to do a part 2 to this. You know what I'm saying? Check it out on, a restream or something like that. And then when I do the part 2, you can catch it on the part 2.
All right.
Yeah. So let me get to Sandy and see what Sandy thinks. And then I'm heading over to the front stoop so we could talk about this Nas album, and do a nice, we're going to review track. Sandy, what do you think, man?
You there, son?
Yeah, I'm there. So what do you?
Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said. Yeah, definitely. I agree with almost everything you said. I think that discipline, setting up rules, and getting them understand that there's going to be some discipline involved, and that they have, they're responsible for everything they do and say going forward is important. And the sooner they start that, the better, because then there's no question. And, you get it started now, Yeah. I would see maybe them even go a little further, even maybe outside of basketball, and, have these guys gel and do things outside of the garden, encourage that. I don't know. Teams probably already do that. But, team definitely needs to be a crew. They need to be disciplined and they need to be tight. They need to have each other's back. I've been thinking about when we're going to eventually hear about, like, definitely before the season starts. I could definitely think of us hearing about, like, Morris and Portis getting in a fight. Not a fist fight, but like a pushing altercation in practice.
Oh, well, man, we'll see how that goes. I know that there's some tough guys. We'll see how that works out. But listen,
I don't think that's bad. I think if no one gets a broken nose or punched in the face, I think that's good for the team.
Yeah. Well, listen, Sandy, we're gonna do a part 2 to this, but right now I gotta get on over to the front stoop because we have a show that's going to be starting shortly. All right. So I got to get on over there and start getting this show, get this show going.
Well, good job with that, my friend. Kill it. Have a great weekend and be safe.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I appreciate you for being on, ladies and gentlemen. I know this is one of the shorter shows, You know, I know this is one of the shortest shows, but, you know, short, powerful, and impactful, I think. Right? But I'm getting ready to head over to the front stoop. It's 10:48. I should be on at 11 o'clock. That's my goal. That's my plan. Join me. If you listen to that Nas album, join me on the front stoop. I just put the channel. I'm putting the channel in the chat. So that you guys can you know, go over to the front stoop and talk with us about this Nas album as we review it. We're going to review it track for track. All right, so join us there. We're going to be there 11 o'clock is when we're going to start. All right. So anyway, I am going to do a part 2 to this because there's a lot more that I want to say. So I'm going to do a part 2. Right. Now, you guys study this, man, so you can come back when we talk again. It's going to be uploaded to YouTube. So when we see it again, you'll be able to tear me apart if you want to. All right. People that's on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, ring that notification bell. You'll be notified anytime I go live, drop a video, post in my community section. Hopefully I'll be back up live streaming on YouTube very soon. And when it does happen, I'll be live streaming on 4 different sites at one time. That's going to be pretty dope. If you're on Twitch, Twitter, or Facebook, well, actually Twitter is not connecting right now. So if you're on Twitch or Facebook, make sure you follow me, share it out so the other people can follow and we can keep building this thing up. But ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for being here. Please join me on the front stoop in about 10 to 15 minutes as we get this thing started. All right. And good conversation, good talk. I will speak to you guys shortly. Peace.